How we doing? How we doing? Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate all the love and support. I appreciate you guys liking and sharing and telling people about it. The reactions I'm getting are pretty good so far. Can't expect much when you're just starting out, you know. This really isn't for profit or to be some famous person or anything like that. It's more just to communicate with everyday people who do not have time to focus on what's going on, let alone actually know the truth about what's going on. Not going to get it by some corporate bought media or some super sponsored podcasters who change their platform when they start getting money, or change their tone when they start getting money, or don't want to upset their sponsors or contracts and stuff like that. I understand that. This is America. Everybody's trying to get by. Everybody does this for a different reason. For me, it's just to share my opinions with the world, and also so that my kids have something to go back on and look and see things I cared about and things I wanted to teach them about that they necessarily don't care about right now. But hopefully someday they'll come to their senses and start worrying about their future a little bit. The sooner they worry about it, the better their future will be, is what I try to tell them. People don't really guide us to our futures when we're young. That might be kind of a problem. We kind of just get set in school and dictated what we're supposed to do. And from the last episode, we see how education really is. John D. Rockefeller took over the education system in the early 1900s, and it hasn't been revamped since. As a matter of fact, Starbucks has overgone more revamping than our public education system has. So, to quote the great John D. Rockefeller, he wants a nation full of workers, not full of thinkers. And so, you have to keep that in mind when you're sending your kids out to school. Just be an active parent. Learn what they're learning at school, learn who their teachers are, learn what they stand for. There's ways to fix education in the United States. School of choice is a big thing. You should be able to choose where you want to go to school, since you got to provide the transportation for them anyways, But with that, it installs a little more competition in how the education works. Another thing is that we don't have a national curriculum, and I find that really weird, considering we do so much state testing, but we don't have a national standard for curriculum, and we let that curriculum be based on locality and religion and politics and race. I mean, it's kind of weird. I don't like that at all, but it is what it is. That's America. It's why we are where we are, because they don't teach us anything, so none of us have any idea of how it works, which kind of leads us into where we're going today. The big Epstein file dropped this weekend. We might as well cover him. I'm not going to get into like a lot of grimace details because I think it's absolutely disgusting. But what we can do is use Jeffrey Epstein to explain how the power system works and why we have such a problem in America and the way money runs everything here. So today, that's what we're going to get into. I really appreciate it, you guys. Keep liking, keep sharing, keep tuning in. If there's anything you guys want to talk about, let me know. If there's anybody that wants to debate on anything, let me know. Like, if there's anybody wants to talk or needs somebody to talk to, just email me or reach out. I'm very open schedule-wise. So if anybody ever needs anything, I'm here. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the love. Like, share, subscribe, tell people about it. I need 15 more subscribers so that I can go live on YouTube. I would like to get that up there so I can go live and start spreading a little bit more like live and be interactive with people and study topics together that way. Thank you. right, guys, welcome back. So, Jeffrey Epstein, born 1953. He's quite the character, as we'll find out in this. Um, as you guys know, everybody knows, they just released 3 million files of his case over the weekend. Convenient timing, by the way, if you kind of pay attention to what's going on. Anyways, don't let that fool you. They, by law, are supposed to release 6 million. So we only got half the documents we're supposed to get. And a lot of the stuff, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not real. The things you could probably focus on most is the emails, because that, is 100% real. Everything else, they're kind of like allegations and stuff like that. I won't get too much into that stuff because I don't know what I can and can't say, so let's not get sued or anything like that. So we'll just stick to Jeffrey Epstein, and that's who we're going to focus on today. This guy was a master manipulator. He created a massive wealth coming from absolutely nothing. I think his estimated worth when he died was around $600 million. So he was almost a billionaire if you included his assets and probably stuff he sold off. After the first time he got in trouble, it's probably well over $1 billion in assets and stuff like that, considering he had the most expensive house in Ohio, the most expensive apartment in New York that he got for $1, by the way. Stuff like that. He was definitely in the elite circles. He was definitely part of some type of intelligence agency, or he was a middleman for all kinds of intelligence agencies, but he definitely worked with 3 different types of intelligence agencies. He worked for the CIA, he worked for Mossad, and he worked for the Saudi Arabian intel arm. He had his hands in everything. We can start from the beginning of his career, where he magically got a job at the wealthiest New York high school there is, and he didn't even have a degree from college. He said he went to college for 2 years and didn't get a degree, and I started teaching at this lucrative school in New York where all of the richest kids and stuff like that go, a super elite school. And he got in there by a guy with the last name Barr. I know that name sounds familiar. You'll find out why here in a little bit. So he got that job through a guy named Barr, and he was teaching at the high school, and he got fired from the high school because apparently he was trying to party with the teenagers. He would show up at their parties and stuff like that. And so, yeah, not a good look, I guess. But he was only like 23, fresh out of college, not graduating, so it makes sense that he still was trying to party with the younger crowd, especially when you look at what he's been charged with. The crazy part to me is that, that's down the timeline. We'll get into that. So after he teaches, he gets a job at Bear Stearns. And at Bear Stearns, his job is to basically, evade taxes for rich people. He was extremely knowledgeable in corporate taxes and extremely knowledgeable in the tax system itself. And that was his job, was to help rich people avoid taxes by moving their money all over the place. Again, he didn't even graduate college, so I'm assuming he met some super elite friends while he was in that super elite high school teaching. He must have been a charismatic person. He could obviously sell salt to a slug. So, he was in Bear Stearns for a while, and then he moved from Bear Stearns because they were about to go through the financial collapse or whatever right there around 2008. He was out of there before that happened. And then from there, he kind of was all over the place. He did so many things. He laundered money to Iran. They were shipping weapons to Iran through Saudi Arabia and Israel. This guy was in everything. He was arrested before in the early 2000s, I think. What was it? Let's see. About 2008. Oh, yeah, around 2008, that Bear Stearns thing, the financial collapse right around then. Either way, he was arrested then. 53 allegations of stuff with a child and child trafficking and exploitation and stuff like that with minors. And they had 53 allegations, 53 witnesses with testimony about this guy and the things he was into. And he got a sweetheart deal from the Florida prosecutor. Is it Tony Podesta, maybe? You don't have to quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's who it was. Was his prosecutor back then, and he got this sweetheart deal where he only had to do 13 months of turning himself in one night every week, and it was his transportation and bodyguards that brought him to and from. So he had like a whole wing of the jail to himself. So this is the kind of sweetheart deal he got, because clearly he's some type of intelligence. And also in that deal, a lot of people don't know that in that deal, he got like peer immunity for any future offenses, and anybody that had ties to him had immunity from any offenses that had happened and will happen in the future. That's really in his thing. Tony Podesta said that he was told that he was part of the intelligence and that he couldn't prosecute him the way that he wanted to. So he got away with that. Like, this is a prime example of the difference in law when it comes to the elites in America and normal citizens, because any normal citizen that had one child allegation, let alone 53, would be buried in the jail most likely, and the investigations would be so deep that they pretty much coerce people into making sure that somebody goes to jail. But in America, it's like if you're worth over $250 million, you don't go to jail. Period. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. That's a problem in America. That's a real problem. It's real hard for people to wake up every day and be law-abiding citizens and go to work every day and bust their ass and get taxed for their money and get taxed for their homes and taxed for their purchases and taxed for everything. And they uphold the law every day. Meanwhile, you have these rich elite people who are moving money around to avoid taxes. They don't get punished for crimes. I mean, we have Congress who's insider trading. There's proof of insider trading. There's proof that members that we voted for are involved in this ring here with Jeffrey Epstein. They're involved with him deeply. And we have no accountability. None whatsoever. All the oath takers in the world, police, FBI, marshals, even the military. Like, this is our country. You took oaths to uphold and defend our Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. This is a domestic enemy problem, okay? We are completely infiltrated from the inside out. From people like Jeffrey Epstein, who can bribe our politicians and blackmail our politicians into coercing them to make laws that benefit them. Israel is a giant benefactor of the United States. They call them our biggest ally. I'm going to do an episode on them, but I want to make sure that I have all my facts straight, because it's a very touchy subject in America, because AIPAC pays for 94% of our Congress members. 94%. 500 Congress members and 491 of them accept money from AIPAC. So it's no wonder why we get bills passed that hand billions over to Israel, and then it comes back in lobby money to our Congress members. I'm not, a financial expert, but I'm pretty sure that falls under money laundering. I'm sending money from one place to another, and it's coming back to me. And for Israel, it's the biggest, best investment that's ever been made in the world, because they donate, $100 million, $200 million to campaigns here in the United States and get bills passed that allow them to get a total of $83 billion so far. And that's just from the federal government. That doesn't include the $385 million from Florida that's invested in Israel, or all the other state investments in Israel, So let's not veer too far off topic. Like I said, I want to make sure I do my homework, because it's a gentle topic. In a country where you have free speech to talk about anybody, it seems like there's one place you can't talk about. And that's kind of a problem, because we live in a country of free speech. I can say whatever I want. I don't care who it offends. And even if it offends you, don't pay attention. I mean, that's the beauty of America. As long as I'm not saying something hurting somebody or saying that somebody specifically did something they didn't do, which I try not to do. Epstein specifically did do these things. He specifically did blackmail our politicians. He specifically did have extreme amounts of politicians and Hollywood superstars and your heroes. You know, the people you look up to, you see what they're really into. You know, it's like these people get so much money, they run out of things to do, so they just try to do the things that you know you're not supposed to do. But because you have money, you can do whatever you want, including and not limited to buying children and doing whatever you want with them. And as far as I'm concerned, if nobody does anything about this, they're complicit in it. Our law enforcement, you're complicit in this. If you refuse to arrest anybody after all of this evidence comes out, you are complicit. If I knew somebody murdered somebody and I didn't call and report that to the law enforcement, I could be charged as an accessory after the fact. And to me, for people who will not uphold the law in this country, you should be charged for an accessory after the fact. Because after the fact of knowing that we have Congress members insider trading, after the fact of knowing that we have politicians being blackmailed, after knowing that our entire government is compromised by a foreign entity, whatever you want to call that foreign entity, it's compromised. They're even compromised by domestic entities, by banks, by big pharma. Companies that we have to prop up when their poor decisions put them at risk. Who bailed out the banks in 2008? We did. We gave them billions of dollars. And they handed out bonuses. Bonuses that are worth probably more than everybody who watches this show make together in 10 years. Just their bonuses. And we gave them that money. You know, I just said to somebody the other day, like, it really bothers me, like, when we go in and, you know, somebody robs a bank and they go to prison and they're in trouble for 5 to 10 years, you know. But meanwhile, these banks have been robbing Americans for the last 100 plus years. 100 plus. JP Morgan has absolutely stripped the United States of any significant sovereignty that it's ever had. You know, that is an entire episode, an entire series. JP Morgan is an entire series. They funded wars to bankrupt America. The JP Morgan is at the top of half of the reasons why America is the way that it is. We let these bankers and we let these politicians and we let these state officials get away with everything, up to and including trafficking and sometimes murder. Satanic rituals. That's what this is all about. It's a war for your spirit, a war for your soul, to keep you so distracted and controlled that you think you're free, but you're not free. We're not free to do anything. You can't get in your car and drive down the road. You got to have a license for that. You can't go fishing. You got to have a license. Like, we've already been through this. You got to have a license to do anything. So we're not free. It's the illusion of choice. The only choice we have is to fucking deal with it or not. And the only way to not, well, we know what that is. And that's unacceptable. So we have to deal with it. But we don't have to deal with it because in America, there's 360 million people here. 360 million. It only takes 10% of that to change the world, to change our world anyways. They sure were up there storming shit for January 6th. Why ain't we storming shit for seeing that the people that we've paid, the people that we give these lifetime pensions to, the people we give these lifetime securities to, presidents that get lifetime security detail, presidents that are going to make millions of dollars after they're fucking presidents for going and doing speeches and going and doing this and that for America. Meanwhile, you're in some vials with some little fucking kids. What are we really doing? What is this country really becoming? Are we really going to stand by and just continue to let our elected officials steal our livelihoods, steal our children, steal our money? Hell, I know some motherfuckers in the hood that ain't trying to let nobody steal their money. Stop playing. The Federal Reserve holds 75% of the world's gold. To me, that says America should just say, okay, you want all this influence outside? You want to do all this? Fuck all you guys. America needs to become isolationist for a little while to get its shit together. To fire politicians. To remove presidents. To remove ex-presidents' details. To charge ex-presidents. Why wasn't George Bush ever charged? You allowed the most biggest terrorist event to happen in United States history on your time. And then all of a sudden we got this huge privacy bill that got shoved down our throats that was already pre-typed up. How was a 1,500 page bill already typed up to give you clearance for pretty much national surveillance under the guise of terrorism? You know, we have 9/11 happen, and it's Osama bin Laden, supposedly, who lives in Afghanistan, who's from Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden was a CIA agent for the United States. They trained him. He was an operative for the United States when they were trying to destabilize Cuba, because that's what the United States does. Osama bin Laden's brother served on the board of an oil company with George Bush. Not to mention, after that, we went to war in Iraq. Why the fuck would we go to war in Iraq when somebody from Afghanistan just knocked down 2 towers and killed over 3,000 people? Make that shit make sense. I can make it make sense. Anybody can make it make sense. I mean, George Bush's daddy got his hind kicked by fucking Iraq and Saddam Hussein. So, you know, maybe his son wanted to get revenge. Or maybe they wanted to go in and steal their fucking resources because Iraq was selling their oil for gold. Weapons of mass destruction. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu came in and told our Congress. There's weapons of mass destruction. You'll make the world a safer place. You'll be a safer place. First of all, Iraq didn't even have no WMDs. Nothing showed that they had uranium enrichment to the point where they could fire ballistic missiles that carried a payload with it. So that was false. Yet we go in there, we destabilize the shit out of the country, we kill thousands of people, we displace millions of children without parents, without homes. But we go in and we steal gold and artifacts and we're destroying museums. For what? We didn't even get the guy who fucking killed 3,000 people. We haven't even arrested our security agencies that failed us. How the fuck do jets just randomly get taken out of the sky and commandeered and flown into buildings without no defense? Where's our national defense? That big ass budget, we just gave them $1.5 trillion. We give them more money and they do shit security jobs like that. Shit security jobs like keeping people like Jeffrey Epstein out of our backyard. keeping people like him from manipulating our political system. Where's our national security? You guys can spy on everything in the world, but you can't catch a sex trafficker? You spy on Americans all day long, but you can't find out where the biggest child porn rings are. You can't find out where the biggest child trafficking rings are. Like, get out of here. Don't give me that shit. You can't do surveillance knowing that they're doing insider trading. You can't do surveillance that you got a foreign entity buying up Congress, buying up all of American assets, buying all of our media. Who owns your social media platforms? Who owns your news stations? Who owns what you're watching? Who owns what you're listening to? Who controls what you see? Who controls what you hear? Who controls what you think? Because that's what it is. Everything you listen to, everything you see, everything you take in is filtering out your brain to create your reality. And your reality is most likely based on everything you've seen or heard or been taught. You've been conditioned. You've been programmed. When you turn on a TV, it's called a television. Why? Because they're going to tell you their vision. When you tune into a channel, you're tuning into their programming. You're going to channel their programming. Okay? Pay attention. Shit's deep. Nothing is as it seems. Nothing is as it seems. I'm under the impression that 90% of the stuff we've ever been told is probably a lie. It's probably a lie. Even when you look into religion, okay? When you look into religion and God is supposed to be the truth and the light, okay, if God's supposed to be the truth and the light, why do we have books missing out of the Bible? In all of the Bibles. Doesn't matter which version. The Quran, the Bible, the Torah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Books are different. How does one have 60-something and one has 80-something? The oldest Bible in the world, the Ethiopian Bible that hasn't been touched, has 88 books in it. Isn't that the truth? Shouldn't we get the full truth and be able to decipher and filter what we want from there? That's what our news media is supposed to be. You're not supposed to be a propaganda machine. You're not supposed to be a news that hides the news from the people. It seems like that's your job. Your job is to hide the real news from Americans. We can't have a proper democracy if we don't have a knowledgeable democracy. So they dumb us down in school. They don't teach us about how lobbying and politics really works. They don't teach us about how money really works. They would never teach you about that. Because if you learned how money works, you would learn how they work. You would learn how the system works. That money is manipulation. Money is literally the root of all evil. And it's fake. Our money is fake. Those paper bills are fake. They're promissory notes, printed out of thin air, with nothing to back the idea of them except for the fact that American workers are stupid enough to continue to pay taxes and pay off the debt that the banks have. The debt that the banks have, okay? Because again, the banks have created this entire system for themselves. It's not corporate people. It's not these giant fucking conglomerates. Those are just arms of the bank. Epstein is proof that money buys you whatever you want. Jets, you can fly anybody you want all over the place. You can traffic children. They got celebrities in there. Celebrities we would never think of that would be in there. Celebrities we look up to. Politicians that we fought for. Where's the accountability? Aren't we going to hold somebody accountable? Not just the fucking president. Not just, oh, the president is this, the president is that. He seems to be fighting against this shit. to the point where they released it because he hasn't went to war with Iran. Some will argue and say, oh, he was supposed to release it by law. If that's the case, why didn't they release it in the first fucking place? So no, that's not it. Joe Biden had the same files. They had the same 6 million files, and they didn't release it. Why didn't they release it? Because they saw their politicians in it. It's hard for a Democrat to say, oh, we're against this and we're against that, and, you know, you're pushing all this open shit, and yet the majority of politicians that are there are Democrats. Hollywood stars, they're Democrats. Jewish people, they're Democrats. The majority of American Jews vote democratically. But Republicans are in it too. Because they're all in it. It's a giant fucking club. We're not invited. We have our own club. And our club is a lot fucking bigger. It might not be as technologically advanced, but they're sure as hell a lot crazier. They're sure as hell have a bigger number. How does a law system fail us to the point where a man has 53 allegations against him from children and women, and he gets 13 months? 13 months, and he only has to serve one night a week in jail in his big wing that he had of the jail, and he got to be escorted by his own private security in his own private vehicles. What the fuck is that? Honestly. That in itself, the whole entire legal system needs to be revamped for that. The law is the fucking law, and it pertains to everybody. You don't mind kicking the shit out of us on the fucking street for an out tail light. You don't mind ripping us out of our cars for an expired tag. You don't mind stopping me outside of my house after working 13 hours and throwing me on the fucking ground. But you sure as hell ain't arresting no politicians. You sure as hell ain't arresting nobody of value. You took an oath to defend this country. Start defending it. Americans shouldn't have to come together and defend it. That's what we hire you for. That's what we hire people to defend our Constitution for. But there are charters in there for that. There are answers to this. This isn't about just the problems. There are solutions. Painful solutions. But necessary solutions. Okay? Public trials must be a thing. Especially for these traffickers of children all across the world. It should be an international law that if you get caught in a child trafficking ring, you should be punished in public. Period. To death. Period to death. Period. You destroy lives for their entire life. Their entire life will not be the same. Just because you don't take their life to the point where they stop breathing, you take their entire life to the point where they want to stop living. So your life should be taken. You shouldn't get to go sit in prison where we have to pay $31,000 a year to feed and give you insurance and keep you alive. That's another thing. It costs, I think it's $31,000 to $35,000 for a prisoner all year to eat, sleep, have 3 meals a day, have insurance, get taken care of, whatever his medical needs are. $35,000 a year. So you can do that for prisoners, but you can't do that for anybody who makes under $200,000 a year. You can't say, here's a subsidy program, you pay a percentage, and we will clear taxes and get it from somewhere else. But we can give $3.5 trillion or $1.5 trillion to the fucking Defense Department that can't stop Americans from dying, that can't stop politicians from being bought. National security, my fucking ass. How about we put $1.5 trillion into national sovereignty? The country that we were designed to be. In the early 1900s, Americans were ready to topple the country because they wanted to go to war. They absolutely did everything to keep us from going into World War I. Absolutely everything. It wasn't until J.P. Morgan pulled us into the war. And then after the war, we got held with the debt that the Europeans couldn't pay because J.P. Morgan demanded he get his money. And Americans were stuck with the debt. And it drove our economy down. It drove us into shit. Twice he did that. And he's still able to do business in America. Where's our fucking national security? Where are our law enforcement agents? What are we doing to stop another Jeffrey Epstein from happening? What are we actively doing from stopping America being any type of involvement in trafficking? Of course, we know the CIA likes to do that, though. They like to traffic humans and drugs. Another branch of our government that we pay for. Private coups in different countries to steal their resources. Off the book black ops. Where does that money come from? We want to know how it really works? The CIA created the Cartel of the Suns in Venezuela. They changed their name. I forget what the name was, but it happened to be the same name of the cartel that Trump named a terrorist group so that they didn't have to go to Congress to go to war with Venezuela. They could just do it based under the guise of law. That a cartel was named a terrorist group. The same cartel that the CIA helped create through Venezuela. So that's how the world works, okay? Nothing is as it seems. Nothing is as it seems. We must protect ourselves, our minds, our thoughts, our souls, our children. Our children are at risk. Every day they walk out that door, they're at risk. At risk for this world's influence. As scary as that shit is. The world's influence. Think about that. The world that you live in. The world that we look around and say, wow, this world's fucking disgusting. We send our kids out to it every day without question. We got to start questioning things. We got to start waking up. We got to start forcing politicians to do things. We got to start contacting Congress members. We got to start building our neighborhoods up again. We got to start coming together. Because they are tearing us down bit by bit. And pretty soon, we're not going to have anything left. We can't let people like Jeffrey Epstein exist with impunity. We can't let these rich billionaire oligarchs keep our country. This is supposed to be a democracy, not an oligarchy. And that's what it has become, an oligarchy, where the business people and people who have all the money in the world get to dictate how we live. They get to dictate what's done with our taxes, dictate what's done with our time, dictate how we get paid, dictate our interest rates at the bank. My interest rate at the bank is 5 to 7%. That's what everybody's national interest rate is. If you go to get a fucking house, maybe you have really good credit and you get maybe 3 or 4%. But either way, BlackRock can go get a loan at 0%. BlackRock's got all this fucking money, $12 trillion in assets. Why do you get access to liquidity to go purchase more assets with zero interest? Why are you able to control $12 trillion in assets in the first place? That's a conflict of interest. To let one company own basically a fourth of America's GDP. Nobody should have that much power. Nobody. Unchecked. Unchecked power. This is a democracy. And we must fight to keep this democracy, or we are going to lose it. We're going to end up like the EU, where you can't say anything about the government. You can't say anything about Israel. You can't say anything about anyone without them taking your bank account, locking you up, making it so you can't fly places, making it so you can't go nowhere. I don't have to be worried about that, bitch. I don't fly anywhere. I don't go anywhere. I don't need a passport. I don't need to get on a fucking plane. It's not illegal for me to tell the truth. And the truth is we've been bought out. Bought and fucking sold by our politicians. We're being fundamentally lied to by teachers, doctors, lawyers, politicians, presidents. Fundamentally lied to. They are destroying our country from within. We don't have to worry about war coming to us. They're going to destroy us from within. Nobody would ever come to war with us. They wouldn't make it anywhere. Where are you going to land? Southern border? Texas? Yeah, fucking right. Florida? Please. Louisiana? Bro. You might do California. They're pretty accepting in California. But once you get too far past California, you're going to run into Arizona, New Mexico. South Central. You think LA is going to let you walk through there, boy? Get out of here. Going to attack the north through Montana, Oregon. Yeah, right. There's no way. There's too many guns here. There's too many people willing to stand against violence but not stand up to the people who are destroying our lives. We're willing to commit acts of violence against each other in the name of God knows what. Profit, humility, disrespect, whatever the fucking case, but we won't go after the people that matter. We won't put that energy towards changing our lives for our kids, changing the future for our kids. Because if we don't do something, there's not going to be a future for them. We have to wake up. We have to come together. We have to stop letting people like Jeffrey Epstein exist. Period. We have a law for everyone. Period. Corrupt judges, corrupt attorney generals, they all need to go. It all needs to go. People need to start going to actual jail. Do we need to build them their own private sweet little jail, their own sweet little prison? Should we build it with their money? Bill Gates definitely deserves to be there. He has enough money to build his own prison. That's where he deserves to be for the rest of his life. He's poisoned people. He's involved with Epstein. After COVID, he should be locked up everywhere. Every country in the world should be fighting to get him in their country and fucking lock him under the jail. But nothing happens. Because he can buy his way out of it. Oh, what a life that would be, to be able to buy your way out of everything, including trouble. You know, I appreciate your guys' time. I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you listening to me. You know, I really want to go live. I really want to talk to people and debate with people and share topics together. So continue to like, share, subscribe. I need 15 more subscribers. Can we try to hit that goal? You know, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for listening. I know we kind of veer off topics a little bit, but, you know, it's just opinions. And it's also facts. We need to come together. We need to wake up. Like, share, subscribe. Come back next time. Thanks.